Hello, hi. My name is Arnold Manganyi, and I'm here with two other guests, Ayabulela and Shaun. This is our first episode of Campus Convo. We'll be talking about the role of SRCs within the university, and they are also here to also contribute into that topic as well, to help us keep going. My first question to either of you is, what do we think about when we hear the role of SRCs within institutions of higher learning?
Should I begin?
Yeah.
Well, the SRC, it's an interesting structure. I think one thing we need to think about it is that it's a structure of governance, right? So, normally as students excited in the hype of politics, we think of it as some important structure that transcends the university and transcends the governance of the university itself. And we don't think about it as a governing structure within the university for the university, not within the university for students. If you just look at the name of the SRC, Student Representative Council, who is it representing students to? And for what reasons, right? So I think, in our conversations of the SRC, we also need to be truthful about what the SRC is in order for us to understand what the role of the SRC is and why constantly we see here at Wits and in other campuses that the SRC either disappoints students or it just fails as a structure because we don't understand it. As students, we think we have this illusion that the SRC is for us and that, it will help us with all our problems, whether it's accommodation or the food crisis or, issues of syllabus or whatever. But that's not what the SRC does. All it does, it represents students to the university so that the university functions better and the business of the university, or rather the economy of the university, circulates more efficiently. So the SRC, to me, what I've experienced with the SRC, and also as someone who once ran for SRC and all those type of things, is that the SRC is a buffer between the students and the university, where it basically, how can I put this? But it not only mitigates interest, but it somewhat sort of lulls student politics so that the university functions better. So it's a governing structure for the university.
Right. If I understand you,
for the university.
For the university.
Yeah.
If I understand you correctly, you are speaking about the SRC in two ways. One, the way in which it ought to be, which is to represent the interests of the students outside of how the university itself should be managed.
Yeah.
And also you speak about how in practice the SRC appears to be.
I don't think there's a difference between what the SRC is or what it ought to be and how it's being practiced.
Okay.
What it is what it ought to be.
Okay.
But us as students, we have the illusion of what it is for us. So the government, for example, we have the illusion that the government is for the people. But that's not necessarily what the government is about. The government is a structure of power that disciplines people in certain ways for the sake of the state, not for the sake of the people themselves. So what the SRC is, which is a representative council for the university, is what it was always planned to be in the blueprints of the creation of the SRC.
Okay, I get you. I'll bring in Shaun to also speak to that topic as well, that question as well, about the role, but even beyond just the role of the SRC itself. Yeah.
So I've been writing a paper tracking the changes in the university political complex since the Fees Must Fall days. The title of my paper is The Shadow That Looms, a systematic delimitation of student politics at Wits. So what the paper talks about is the increasingly political space that we have seen post Fees Must Fall. We've seen that the university has started normalizing the presence of private security, but there are also some systematic changes that have been made to the university political complex that have contributed to the type of lumpen politics that we see today. One of the most pertinent issues that my paper talks about is the recent amendment to the SRC constitution that amends the criteria for running for SRC. So the pretext is that management wants, or rather student governance wants, more capable leaders who will graduate in time. We get the whole pretext. But I think that this is a topic that is open to interrogation on a political level, on a philosophical level, even on a moral level. Part of my paper focuses on a hypothetical student body that comprises of disadvantaged black students who come from disadvantaged socio-political backgrounds and whose disadvantage reflects in the marks they get. So statistically speaking, this group that we have has got lower chances of representing or of electing leadership or representation in the SRC. I think these are moral and political questions that we have to interrogate. And it also applies the idea of meritocracy. So my paper also talks about the contradictions of meritocracy within a democratic setting.
Okay. I think I need to go back to my point when I spoke of what I thought you were saying. When I said there is, to me, the understanding that there is what an SRC ought to be and what it is in practice. And what I was drawing from is that if we understand the SRC as a student body that seeks to represent the interests of the students, we're then led to the question of who these students are. And if Shaun is to answer that question, he will say those students are the disadvantaged students. They are the students who then, suffering other disadvantages that are outside universities, struggle to actively participate in SRCs. Meaning then, I think there must be an ought to what this leadership body needs to be like. An ought that I think would be fair to exist outside of the university's plans. Of course, it's an institution that the university wants to be there. There's a body that the university wants to be there. So their ought will definitely be different from Aya's ought and my ought, because we will speak from a point of a transformation of society. They might speak from a point of maintaining their position in society. So whatever that leadership body does, for them it will do what keeps them in that position. But for us, I think it will do what pulls us out of a situation wherein we respond, to their needs or to their demands. That's what I was trying to hint at about the ought of an SRC and the practice of an SRC. So if I'm correct, in as far as this is concerned, where does that put the SRCs we have now? The SRC here at Wits University, for example.
For me, is that, in these conversations that we have, and I think maybe that's why always our political practice it becomes futile at the end, because these conversations are not really truthful about the structures, of governance that we have. We don't think, again, I reiterate this point, we seldom think of this as a governing structure. And then the question that follows is, what does governance do? Does governance, and when we speak about representation in governance, what does that mean, right? So, for a lot of us who believe in these political structures, people would say, well, it's to represent my interests, to make my life better, to give me a good life and all these other things, because otherwise, why are we in politics if we don't want a good life for all, or good life for me, whatever, right? And it's to do that. That's what people would say. But politics, in truth, and we see this historically, we've seen this at Wits, and that's why literally every SRC since I've been at Wits has been quite futile. And it's just an issue of discipline. You discipline your constituency from not overreacting, from not killing the space, from not resisting too far. Yes, resist so that you can assure yourself and the rest of society that you are a political subject and you have freedom, but do not resist to this extent. If you just think about, an exaggerated example is SRC during FMF. Why did we need the SRC in FMF? It was to literally, it was that buffer road between the university and students. And every time students would propose a radical action, the SRC would be like, no, comrades, think practically, and all these type of things. And that's not that particular SRC and that particular SRC president, but it's just the SRC. That's the pattern of what the SRC is.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, we need to, as people who come from disadvantaged backgrounds and all those type of things, we don't only need to think about the present, but we need to think about the future of Black life. Well, I'm interested in Black people, so I'm going to put it this way: of Black life, the future of Black life beyond the present.
Yeah.
So it's not only about giving me pads. It's not, I mean, although those things are important, it's not only about giving me a place to stay, but it's about, once I have my pads and once I have a place to stay, what then? And you know, normally that freezes people's political action because, okay, I have all these material things, but I don't have an idea of the future, right? Yeah. And for me, the future is independent. You know, for me, the future is independent. We need independent structures and independent politics that enables us to rethink student politics, you know, where student politics is not hinged on the university, where student politics is not dependent on greater structures, and we don't have these funding problems that we do right now, but where student politics takes itself into its own hands, drives its own politics, drives its own life. For me, that's what my vote is, not the SRC as we have it. For me, I'm driven by the idea of abolishing the SRC. Yeah.
Because it exists in only one way, which is to speak to the interests of the university, you say.
Yeah, and there are mechanisms. Remember, the interest of the university is not always this like naked oppression of students.
Agreed.
You know, power, it can make you sad and it can make you happy.
Yeah.
Power will give you your pads and it will give you your place to stay. You are happy, you co-sign it.
Yeah.
But in the same turn, it can also remind you that I am ruling over you. I am your master.
Okay.
So power makes you happy and it makes you sad. So that's what I think we need to free ourselves from.
All right. Before we wrap up, and this might be again me misunderstanding what's being said here, but if I look at what you write about, you know, in the shadow that looms, you speak about what is now happening in this university, for example, with the introduction of a 60% average that is needed for students to actually participate, right? Now, when that was brought up, a few of us, or maybe many students, I might not be aware of that, but a few thought, well, it doesn't make sense that for all these years we've spoken about the decolonization of the curriculum in institutions of higher learning. Why is it then that we sit by as SRCs and students within the university, as the university says again to us, that before you actually engage in this practice of decolonizing the curriculum, you must at first prove yourself to have understood, you know, the curriculum that you want to decolonize. So it's a way of saying, before you bring an end to me, I'll be the one to allow you, in fact, to put you in a position where you can change this. This is assuming that SRCs are actually in a position to change this, which is what I would not agree with. But is that what your paper looks at? Does it look at an SRC that is capable of changing this, or does it look at, you know, a different sort of structure, as Aya speaks about, an independent structure that exists and is able to do away with the systematic, you know, and all these other issues that are happening?
Yeah, I think the question that you're raising speaks to the biggest question of our time. And that is how the current political structures want to gloss over the initial socio-political inequalities that are represented by the political space, that are reproduced by our marks, that are reflected by our politics. But also part of my paper tracks the sentiment that she's talking about, the illusion between what SRC ought to be and what it is now. And my paper interprets this political wilderness or this political turmoil as emanating from that rupture between reality and the illusion. Because now we elect SRCs that we want. We elect the SRCs that we think ought to be, the revolutionary SRCs that do want change, that do want revolution. But at the end of the day, they are trapped within this systematic mold of the university. Our SRC is not able to openly communicate with students. There are a lot of things that our SRC cannot do because of the structural impediments that are put in the way. So part of the problems that exist in the university political complex today can be located within that matrix of the rupture between reality and idealism.
Okay. But as a way of summing up, I get the necessity of an independent structure, an independent structure that is not, to begin with, the product of institutions of higher learning themselves. So as an SRC would be what Wits University has produced, what is needed is an independent structure that when something such as Face Must Fall is happening, would then speak in a manner that relates to the challenges that those students face as opposed to what this SRC is capacitated to do or not do. And on the other side, from the book or the document that has been written, it looks at how it is in the first place that these SRCs are unable to actually engage in a meaningful way in as far as addressing our problems are concerned. And looking at that, you go as far as also speaking to what then must be done, which is, as you say, speaks to the independent structure that she alludes to as well. Okay, that is the conclusion of this segment. Thank you for the time, and thank you for being here as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.